All right. Appreciate everybody joining me today. JR Dukes at your service. Let me know if you can hear me out there. I want to make sure we have a good connection. Figured we would try a little bit of a different time frame than we normally do. I always appreciate everybody tuning in to see what I got to say. We got some fantastic news we have to get to today. This Fani Willis stuff is on a whole different level. So it looks like I'm coming in good and clear. Thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. Welcome, everybody. It's always my pleasure when you stop by. Thanks for visiting American Nana. I appreciate y'all. I wanted to tell everybody real quickly the other day on the software glitch. That's what happens when you try new software and you have a little sound issue here and there, but that's exactly what happened. It's a little of a technical thing, but you have to be using a Chrome extension browser, blah blah blah, and I got it all worked out. So hopefully we won't have any issues whatsoever as we discuss this. The great news for today is Fani Willis, folks. This case is over. I've been saying forever that this case is over. This is done. Put a fork in the Fanny's fanny. Nathan Wade, Fani Willis, DA, Fulton County, Georgia. I'm sure everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about the bogus, illegitimate, politically motivated case involving Donald Trump and associates out of Atlanta, Georgia. The county there is called Fulton County, Georgia. It is just a shameful situation that they would allow this type of nonsense to happen. And let's call it what it is. We all know this is political interference. I mean, straight up political interference. And thank God we are going to see the end of this very soon. Okay, so we're gonna go over this briefly as to what has happened to date, and then I'm going to get into the breaking news. I want to show you something real quick here too. So let's take a quick peek at this because I want to line this out. Okay, this first document that we have right here. This is going to be where the good juice is right here. This is a brief that was filed by Donald Trump's lawyer today in Fulton County Court in Georgia pertaining to this RICO case. This investigator, the Trump investigator, his name is, if I'm saying it right, it's Charles Middlestad. This guy is as good as it gets as far as investigators. The first video we're going to watch involves Megan Kelly interviewing an attorney local in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Specifically, this attorney works out of Cobb County, which is adjacent to Fulton County, and he knows all the players in this saga very well and rather directly. He has their phone numbers. They may not be best of friends. I'm sure they're not going to be best of friends after this interview, but I will tell you straight up, this guy has a fantastic reputation. So let me tell you what he did in a nutshell here. He went through cell phone records and he can prove that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were intimate lovers a long time before they swore under oath that they were lovers. So I don't want to make this too confusing. So let me recap what happened and why this is important. And then we're going to get right into the first video and start going through this documentation. All right. Because I want to make sure we're on the same page. So just a quick background. We're all familiar with the RICO case in Fulton County, Georgia. Fani Willis, District Attorney Fani Willis, she is the district attorney there in Fulton County. She brought this RICO case against Donald Trump and a ton of other individuals, saying that they all conspired to essentially steal the election of 2020, the terrible crime of trying to steal that election. Okay. Well, whether you believe it or not, what she did is she went ahead with this RICO case, which stands for Racketeering Internally Corrupt Organizations. Now, this is a heavy-handed tool, as we've discussed many times. This is the kind of thing that you only use. It was designed for gangsters, folks. That's exactly what it was designed for, was gangsters. And she has built a reputation as being the person to turn to when you want to hammer people with this type of law. Well, as it turns out, time gets a click in and things don't seem like they're adding up correctly. And it all started with an attorney named Ashley Merchant out of Cobb County, Georgia. She represents a defendant by the name of Michael Roman. Now, who's Michael Roman? Well, I don't know. You don't know. But Michael Roman's one of the individuals that she ran over. Now, why do I say she ran Michael Roman over? She ran him over because he was never indicted by the grand jury. Can you believe that? The grand jury, the grand jury never indicted Michael Roman. That's just a fact. But did that stop sweet Fani Willis in her tracks from indicting Michael Roman? Well, you know the answer, right? You know the answer. I know the answer. No, she went ahead and ran him over because she doesn't care about justice. She cares about getting Trump. She cares only about her own political agenda, her own corruption agenda. And that's what it is. There are many videos out there, and I got a lot of videos that I'll be coming out with that show specifically Nathan Wade. What's been going on here as far as water cooler talk goes is they have had a basically a history of this type of behavior where they're basically giving contracts to different people and they're getting kickbacks in those contracts. But thanks to Ashley Merchant, she got online and she found out that Nathan Wade filed for divorce from his wife on November 2nd, 2021. Now, why is that significant? Well, it's significant because on November 1st, 2021, Fani Willis hires Nathan Wade to be the main prosecutor, the lead prosecutor in this Donald Trump RICO case. And of course, depending on what published report you read, she went ahead and cut him a check for $728,000 to $1 million. And the very next day, he decides he's going to divorce his wife of 26 years. And listen, I heard a video today from the attorney that represents Ashley Wade, the soon to be ex wife of Nathan Wade. And she said that essentially was not only left destitute, he left her with no money, no way to take care of herself. She has health issues that she has not been able to go see a doctor for up until recently because of the way Nathan Wade had treated her, had failed to support her. This is her story. I don't know what the other side is, but I just want you to know what's going on and what the facts are as far as we can tell at this particular point. Well, so the great attorney Ashley Merchant, she blows the lid off this entire thing. Obviously it's been all over the news, all over the press. We all saw that hearing for the last week and a half that's been going on, and they were supposed to reconvene today. And if you're wondering what's going on with that, the hearing is the judge is supposed to convene Monday and make a decision, but he's got a lot on his plate, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I mean, there is a lot on his plate right now. So what he's trying to do, or I should say, what Ashley Merchant did is she found out there's a divorce, and she immediately smelled a rat. She knew something is up, so she started sniffing around and checking around, and sure enough, she found evidence that because it was in the divorce papers, pursuant to what Jocelyn Wade put in the divorce papers before a judge sealed it for some unknown reason, and then of course it was unsealed with a subsequent hearing that was taking place after it was sealed, and it was unsealed and finally released to the public. And now we have all these records. We've been going on with this hearing for the last week or two, and it is amazing how they are tapping around the issue as to whether or not they are lovers and when they became lovers. Now, you may ask, what does it matter when they started, messing around with each other? What's the problem, right? I mean, they're adults. They can do whatever they want to do. Well, the reason it's a problem is because, first of all, they have sworn under oath, which means under penalty of perjury, that they did not start their relationship until and after November 1st, 2021. Period. No exceptions to what I just said. So if it can be proven that they started a intimate relationship before that date, that would be perjury. And that could be grounds for disbarment. It could be grounds to have this case thrown out in its entirety. And so far, there's already been a witness that happened to be a former girlfriend of Fani Willis, a girl that she went to college with, that said right off the bat that in 2019, she personally witnessed Fani Willis and Nathan Wade together in an intimate setting, kissing, hugging, holding hands. Oh man, I just really envy Nathan Wade in this situation. And on a side note, have you seen the picture of Nathan Wade's soon-to-be ex-wife? She's a beautiful woman, but I don't want to go off on that tangent. It's just odd. I will tell you this: it's clear to me, as I've said before, that Nathan Wade is definitely doing the work that I wouldn't want to do. We'll just let it go at that. But that's essentially what this is all about. And it speaks to the credibility of the parties, swearing that this is what happened, this is the date that it happened, and nothing happened before that. Because see, if it happened before that, then it looks exactly like it is. And what I mean by that is it looks as if Fani Willis and Nathan Wade have a little corruption scheme going on. The way the scheme works is Fani Willis, without going to the Fulton County Board, she was supposed to go to the board first and get permission to hire a special prosecutor. She did not do that, and she was supposed to do that. The judge in this case said it's okay. He's not going to make a big deal about it. And now you see the reason why they have these type of rules. They have these rules for a reason, to avoid problems, to avoid conflicts like this. That's what this is all about. So, at any rate, she hires him. She writes him a big fat check, and it turns out that we have proof. We have absolute proof now. They took vacations together. They went to the Napa Valley. They took several cruises. They went to Belize. They went to Tennessee several times. They took all kinds of trips, had a good old party, a ton of dinners. But here's the catch. Listen, Fani Willis says because she's black, and black people keep a lot of cash at home. Yeah, that's right. Did you know that? If you're black, you keep all the cash at home, right? Okay. So she keeps it all at home. And she says she's paid Nathan back for every dime he spent on her from the money that she paid him to handle this so-called RICO case. Of course I believe that, don't you? Yeah, I know. I feel the exact same way. And it gets better. She nor Nathan have any receipts showing the transaction, that he was reimbursed, that she paid him. There are no receipts showing money coming out of the bank. None, out of any bank. There are no receipts showing money coming out of the bank, no receipts showing cash money going into the bank. Ain't that something? And Nathan Wade, in his own interrogatories pertaining to his divorce, his upcoming divorce, his pending divorce from his current wife, essentially said he didn't really have much money. I forgot exactly what he wrote on there, but it's nothing like what he should have on him. Let's just put it that way. It's just kind of something's weird. And then, of course, we're in this hearing, and his ex-law partner, a guy, I want to make sure I quote his name right. His ex-partner by the name of Terrence Bradley was on the stand, and he says, and he's been talking to Ashley Merchant. Apparently, there's a text between him and Ashley Merchant on his phone where he goes, "Oh yeah, of course, I know that Nathan Wade and Fani Willis been bumping uglies way before 2021. But I don't know what I can do for you. Maybe I can write an affidavit. Maybe I can't write an affidavit." So they get to court, and Mr. Bradley has a change of heart. He doesn't want to testify. He doesn't want to say anything against his ex-partner, Nathan Wade. So what does he do? He says, he has a great idea. He says, I am and was the attorney for Nathan Wade for his divorce. By the way, he was never paid one dime by Nathan Wade, if you can believe this. This is the story he told the court. And he told the judge that all of their communications was protected communications under what's called attorney-client privilege. He said all of it is attorney-client privilege, and basically he can't remember nothing, but the fact is all of their communications is protected by attorney-client privilege. And of course, the judge wasn't going to swallow all that. He swallowed a bunch of it, but not all that. The testimony continued. They're hee-hawing back and forth, and then at the end of this hearing, or I should say the end of what's going on in this hearing, it turned out that the prosecution's own attorney, I believe her name is Miss Cross, she started hammering Bradley because she didn't like what he said. The prosecution was trying to have it both ways. They liked what he said most of the time, which was he can't remember or it's attorney-client privilege. And then at the same time, they were hammering him about some alleged sexual assault or sexual impropriety that apparently broke up the partnership, the original partnership of Nathan Wade and this guy by the name of Terrence Bradley. So we're not exactly sure of all the facts, but there's something there apparently. And what happened at that time is that at the end of the hearing, Bradley started talking. He started talking about things that he originally said was attorney-client privilege. So what the judge said is, says, I'm not sure that Mr. Bradley understands what I meant about figuring out what is attorney-client privilege and what is not. The judge was being very kind, by the way. What the judge was actually saying is, this dude's lying. This guy lied to me. So he said, we're going to continue this at a later date, and we're going to do some in-camera type of discussions and inspections of the facts and the text messages and all this other stuff. What that means essentially when you're talking in camera is privately in the judge's chamber. And there's one more piece of this you need to know before we go further. It's kind of weird, this hearing. It's not like there's a jury. You may be thinking, well, why are they trying to object and keep evidence out? Well, the trier of fact is what we call this. It's generally a jury, but it can also be the judge. In this particular hearing, the trier of fact is the judge. That is kind of weird, isn't it? He goes back in camera to privately look over the text messages. And at the same time, he has to rule as to whether or not they're admissible or inadmissible, but he sees it. He knows what it says. You're trying to think, well, how does that make any sense? Well, at the end of the day, what he has to do, what he's supposed to do is sit down. And if it's something that's admissible, he considers it. If it's inadmissible, he doesn't consider it. I know that's kind of weird. It's kind of like, well, he wants the truth, doesn't he? Yeah, he wants the truth, but you have to have the truth consistent with the rule of evidence. So that's what that's all about. It has to be consistent with the rule of evidence. So I just want you to kind of keep that in mind. It's a little weird what's going on, but I'm telling you, the lid is blown off this case at this time because of the cell phone records. Obviously, I don't believe that all the evidence is even coming out now when you hear this cell phone record evidence, because what this evidence is going to show, essentially, there's been a bunch of booty calls, if you know what I'm talking about, prior to the November 1st, 2021 date and much earlier. They're able to go back and through some program that you'll hear about in a second, they're able to figure out where Nathan Wade was, where Fani Willis was. And after he leaves, say at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, he goes home or to wherever his residence is. He picks up the phone and gives her a call, and you can imagine he's saying, hey, baby, I made it. Talk to you later. Click. That type of thing. So there's more and more evidence coming out. I don't believe that basically the defense, Trump's team, Ashley Merchant, and her client, Michael Roman, I don't believe that they're giving all that they have right now. Sometimes it's better to just let people keep digging the hole deeper. And then when they get in deeper and deeper, you just cover them up and bury it, and it's over with. That's why I say this case is over with. We're just going to go through this and see exactly where this transpires. Here, this second piece right here, this is the actual motion that Nathan Wade just filed. If time allows, we're going to go through it. But basically, he's saying, Judge, you don't have any legal basis to look through my text messages, even in camera, in your private chambers. And I'm sure that's going to go well with the judge. Essentially, folks, there is let's just say it is a fraud that is being perpetrated on the court at this point. I don't know how else we can say it any other way. It is literally a fraud being perpetrated on the court. I think that is just absolutely clear, and it's a shame, but that's where this is all heading. And I will say this: if they can prove a fraud on the court, which is what it looks like they're proving right now, you're going to see Fani Willis and Nathan Wade not only lose this case, they are more than likely going to be referred to the Georgia Bar Association and be disbarred, which means they cannot practice law anywhere. I mean, it's over with. The best they could ever do is become a paralegal at that point. Additionally, I don't know how the judge has any other choice but to make a referral for prosecution to the appropriate solicitor or another district attorney, because this is a fraud on the court. They can't allow her or Nathan to get away with this. This undermines the foundation of our judicial system. Not only is it perjury, I want to make sure you understand it's fraud on the court, because there is clearly a conspiracy by these parties to continue to hide the truth and outright lie to the court. And remember that they are currently prosecuting under the RICO statute individuals that allegedly engaged in perjury. They asked these people questions and they have determined it was perjury that they engaged in. So the same conduct that they're trying to put people in for 20 years, period. It's 20 years on a conviction for RICO. There's no discretion. 20 years, boom. They're engaging effectively in the same type of behavior. That's a something, ain't it? So let's start into this first video here. Megan Kelly, she did a great job in this particular interview right here. She's going to talk to a local attorney that's right there in Cobb County.
Welcome to the Megan Kelly Show, everyone. I'm Megan Kelly, special edition coming to you live from Washington, D.C., where I am for CPAC. And I was not expecting to be on the air today, but we had such significant breaking news in the Fani Willis debacle that we had to put an episode out for you. So that's what we're doing today. And Phil Holloway, who's the founder of Holloway Law Group, a lawyer down in Cobb County, right where this is all happening. He knows a lot of the players in the case, is with us. And we're going to get you updated on the bombshell developments that dropped earlier this morning. Phil, thanks for being here.
Always happy to be with you, Megan. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. And to you. All right. So let's just start with the headline. The headline is that the defense lawyers for Trump filed a brief today attaching an affidavit from an investigator who works for the defense, who went and somehow, you're going to explain how, managed to get a subpoena for Nathan Wade's cell phone records, not all of his, the specifics of his texts, but that show where he was, what cell phone towers his phones were connecting to, how many times he called Fani Willis, etc. There's a ton of detail in here. And what they are saying is that there's really no doubt that these two were in excessive contact throughout at least 2021, long before they said their affair began under oath in 2022, to the tune of 12,000 text messages over the 11-month period they looked at in 2021, and over 2,000 voice calls in that same period. I was averaging it out. It's basically, I think, 180 text messages a month, which is a lot, or it's 180 voice calls a month, which is insane. I went back just for kicks to see how many voice calls my husband and I had this month, Phil, and it was 46. All right. So they were averaging 180, these alleged non-lovers.
Yeah, remember that 180 calls between the two per month in the time period they claimed that they were not having a relationship. Okay.
During 2021, and the cell phone tower evidence seemed to suggest there were also overnight visits between these two allegedly platonic friends. So what was your takeaway in what you read this morning?
Yep. So that's quite something. And of course, we have not heard their response, but I don't know what their response could be, because what they did, they used something called geofencing, which basically, law enforcement uses it all the time to solve crimes. Anytime somebody goes somewhere with a smartphone, it can be tracked. And this is, quite frankly, one of the first times I've ever seen it used this way by the defense in a criminal case. But last week, when we heard Steve Sadow questioning Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, he asked some questions that led me to believe that he just might have cell phone data. And lo and behold, he's working in connection with Ashley Merchant, who represents Mr. Roman, who first brought this whole thing to light. They sent a subpoena to the cell phone providers, and they got the data. And they ran it through fancy software that investigators use. And by the way, private investigators who work for criminal defense lawyers, they can get the same training that cops can get. And so the tables have really been turned. This data, Megan, shows that he was at, her place, or maybe that safe house, or remember the witness that said, that it was at her home for a while. She's the one that saw them together, saw them acting like
her former friend, Robin Yurty, who turned on her and testified.
That was the resident.
She just to bring people up to speed. That was the friend Robin Yurty, who was her very good friend since college, and also testified the affair was going on long before 2022. Also said that after Fani was getting harassed at her home, she allowed Fani to move into Robin's condo for a period of time, and it appears to include most of 2021. And that's where Fani was during all this time. And the defense was making a big deal during the hearing we watched last week of how many times did Mr. Wade visit you there? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, just remember that what they're discussing is that very first witness that came forward, and this that was the woman, that was the black lady, that was the very first witness that was on the stand, and she was very clear that she knew that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade were together as a couple, as lovers, and that's a problem because they have said under oath in these affidavits and now on the stand that they were not lovers prior to November 1st, 2021. So make sure you remember that day, because this geofencing, these computer programs clearly show that is a lie.
Yeah, and that's the resonance that they use. After his testimony, they went back and compared the cell phone data, and they found him going there, from in the evening, maybe 7, 8, 9 o'clock to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? So this is not the time when you're just basically over there visiting your boss, preparing for court, right? This is the time when you're doing things, maybe sleeping together. But this is not the general sort of, we're just going to hang out and have drinks kind of time, right?
Oh, let me put some numbers on that. So what the private investigator Charles Middlestat is saying is that the cell phone records show that at a minimum of 35 occasions, when Mr. Wade's phone connected for an extended period to either one of these towers in close proximity to where Fani Willis was living, the data reveal he is stationary and not in transit. So it's not like he's doing a flyby. So at least 35 occasions in those 11 months, in addition to the 2,000 voice calls and just under 12,000 text messages. And the two instances that he highlights are the ones you just made reference to. September 11th, overnight into the 12th, 2021, of course, before Nathan Wade was hired as special prosecutor, showed he arrived at Fani Willis's house at 10:45 p.m. and stayed until 3:28 a.m., arrived back at his home at 4:05 a.m., and then sent a text to Fani Willis at 4:20 a.m. Now,
okay, boom. How are they going to explain that? That is September. So you got September, October, November. That's at least 2 months prior to the November 1st, 2021 day that they swore that they were not a couple. Yet you have him going to her house at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and leaving about 3:30. And then he gives her a "I'm home, I'm okay" call about 6:30. This is going to be insurmountable to explain. And it's not a one-time event. As they said, there are many times, hundreds of times. Let's continue.
Now look.
Yeah, that's the "I made it home safe" text, right? This is
Phil. This is to me what an affair looks like.
Well,
right?
It does.
He was still married. I think he was still living with his wife at this point. Because I'm like, why would somebody leave the house of their affair partner at 3:28 in the morning? And I don't know. I guess we'll find out eventually, maybe. But it certainly might be something someone who didn't want their wife to know they had left the house might do, because he did it again. The other example is November 29th to 30th, 2021. And he arrived at her home at 12:43 in the morning and stayed there until just before 5 a.m., 4:55 a.m.
And remember, this is just comparing his known residence to that known location. That's the only two they looked at. If they start looking at other things, who knows what they're going to find? Think about his testimony and her testimony in court and how many times it was asked, did you ever cohabitate together and all this kind of stuff? And they were like, no, there was no cohabitating, no spending the night. Well, I guess it depends on what your definition of spending the night is. Because if you leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, maybe you say, well, it wasn't quite the whole night. I don't know. But we're splitting hairs.
That is just
Listen,
not going to fly. But I'll play
laughable.
a little bit of that sound so people can be reminded. SOT 3 is that claim you just referenced. Watch.
I have gone to a condo in Hapeville.
Okay. So Hapeville.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have gone to a condo with Miss Willis in Hapeville.
I have.
Have you spent the night there?
Never.
Never spent the night.
Oh.
Never.
Did Mr. Wade ever visit you at the condo that you leased from Miss Yurdy?
He visited that condo, yes.
Boom. Did you guys hear that? That right there is perjury. He said, I have never been there. She goes, oh, yeah, he's been there. And now they got cell phone records to prove it, to back it up.
Did.
Yes.
Ouch.
Did he ever spend the night at that condo?
No.
Oh,
Just visited.
perjury.
Yeah, but he did visit for sure.
Did anyone else stay with you at the Yurty condo,
I was
including Miss Yurty?
never. Miss Yurdy never lived in the condo.
My word was stayed, not lived. Stayed with you at the condo.
I guess I don't understand the distinction, but no one ever, I think my baby, my oldest child, I think she spent one night with me, maybe my oldest and my youngest. But I think that whole time I was in that place, other than that one night, I don't think anyone ever, there was a very lonely period in my life. I don't think anyone ever spent the night other than maybe one night.
Doesn't look like she was that lonely because I'm sorry, you arrive at 1:45 in the morning and leave at 5 in the morning. That's the night.
I'm so glad that I came on to do this show with you today because my Twitter feed has just been blowing up all day. And I've been trying to remember as best I can, what we heard during that testimony. But that SOT you just played, that crystallizes it right there. It's obvious that they were, look, in my opinion, at least, it's obvious that they were lying. Okay. So if that's the case, they've lied under oath. They've perpetrated a fraud on the court. Okay, so
I can make it clear for you folks. They lied. I have no problem telling you. They lied. It's so clear. It's very obvious.
now in very, very serious territory here. This is the kind of thing that the judge is really not going to have much choice. He's got to take some action now because we can't have people playing these little word games like that when they're asked a straight question and they say, no, nobody ever stayed the night. Well, if they left at 5 a.m., that's spending the night in my book. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they certainly were not forthcoming. They certainly left the wrong impression, tried to at least, of what was going on. And so the question becomes, if they're lying about that, Megan, what else are they lying about? And that's when the whole thing ties together with the cash, the untraceable cash. The judge, if he finds that a witness has lied or is untruthful, he is entitled to disbelieve all of their testimony about everything else. And that includes the cash.
That's important to remember. This case can hinge on credibility. And just like this attorney said, this Holloway guy, if the judge believes that you lied about one thing, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, whatever, if they lied about one thing, he can and he will simply strike all of their testimony and assume that they're lying about everything.
This is ignoring the big lie that we think they told, which is their affair did not begin before 2022. After she hired him. I mean, the reason whether he slept over and the number of texts and the number of phone calls is relevant is it doesn't sound like a platonic relationship. I practiced law for 10 years. I never had a co-counsel come over and spend the night from 1 a.m. to 5 in the morning. And I was a single woman for most of that time.
Are you sure?
Didn't happen. And there's a reason. So this is all sort of evidence of the big lie, which I believe they told. because they knew it stinks that she hired her lover, that she paid him more than she paid the other special prosecutors, and that she then benefited from it because he took her all over the world on this fat cat salary, at least versus what she'd be paying people who actually worked for her in the DA's office, and certainly what she was making. But I want to go back because they were asked, it was very clear, and I sensed the same when they were getting cross-examined by Merchant and by Sadow. It was very clear they had these records when they were asking Fani and Nathan questions last Friday. And it's now, knowing what we know from this affidavit and these phone records, it's very interesting to watch the testimony because Nathan knows, Fani knows, they know what the truth is, and watch them dance on these questions. Here's Fani being careful not to actually say exactly how many times Nathan Wade visited that.
This part gets really good, so pay attention to this because they're going to be on the stand. And you talk about dancing. This is dancing.
Condo. Again, now we know it was at least 35 occasions when he was there for an extended period. Watch.
Could you give us an approximation of how many times Mr. Wade visited you at the condo?
As a side note, the gentleman right here, this older guy right here on the top left screen, this is Donald Trump's attorney. His name, I believe, is Steve Sadow or Shadow, something to that effect. But this is Donald Trump's attorney, and he is pretty good.
Between the time you moved in and prior to November 1 of 2020?
I don't think often, but I don't want to speculate.
Can we say more than 5, more than 10?
Hello.
I'm gonna tell you the problem I'm having here.
The problem you're
Let's say
having, Fani, is you're trying to think, what can I say without perjuring myself and without losing this case and without ending up in jail myself?
Been 10, but I'm not sure that that's even accurate. He certainly has come and picked me up, gone and grabbed some food to eat. I don't remember him being in that condo a lot.
Whenever you hear defendants use words like I can't remember or I can't recall, that's an old trick, by the way, folks, so that you don't get yourself in a perjury trap. Because how can you prove someone didn't recall?
Okay, that's
I'm sorry. You want a number, and what I don't want to do.
giving me your
is to
current
mess-
and best recollection is all I'm asking for.
That's all I can give you, sir.
Okay, and now here's Nathan Wade. Just for the audience, because the name is interesting. It sounded like Hateville, Georgia. I remember thinking that when last Friday, thinking who would name their town Hateville? It's Hape with a P, like
Hapeville,
Paul,
Georgia.
Hapeville. Here's Nathan Wade's commentary about the number of times he visited the condo.
Your answer is yes. Prior to November 1st of 2021, you would have gone to the Hapeville condo and been there with Miss Willis, correct?
Yes.
And you would have been there, as you indicated, for many reasons, right?
Yes.
Can you give me, just list a few of the reasons?
Miss Yuri.
This guy was sweating bullets during his testimony. I mean, he was literally sweating, and you can see him gulping. Gulp. And look how wrinkled his forehead is right here. This is a classic sign of someone under stress and generally not being very truthful.
He resided there, went to visit her, maybe went to talk about a document.
You see how he's shaking his head side to side? This gets into body language and stuff like that. But generally, when you get people saying something that's factual, but they're shaking their head like this, that's another tell. I can't say it's definitively a lie, but this is a body language type thing.
That I received.
You would go to the condo
I
to
needed
talk
to
about a
see-
document that you received?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely.
See him grit his mouth.
Any other reasons?
You see him grit his teeth or kind of grit his mouth like, absolutely, absolutely. He's angry. He's mad. There's a deception. Oh, my goodness. I feel like this is a show on Lie to Me or something.
None come to mind.
None come to mind.
No, sir.
And would you say that was frequent? When I say frequent, do you think prior to November 1st of 2021, you were at the condo more than 10 times?
No, sir.
So it'd be less than 10 times.
Yes, sir.
So if phone records were to reflect that you were making phone calls from the same location as the condo before November 1st of 2021, and it was on multiple occasions, the phone records would be wrong?
If phone records reflected that, yes, sir.
They'd be wrong.
They'd be wrong.
Any other reasons why you would be in the
Did y'all catch that? Did you catch that? The phone records would be wrong. If he is foreshadowing what just came out about the cell records. How ingenious. You don't tell them, I gotcha. You get them on the stand, you get them to lie, you give them that, as this one guy's going to say, enough rope to hang themselves. And that's exactly what they did. I love that. Now that I re-listen to that, that is beautiful.
Capeville area on multiple occasions prior to November 1st of 2021?
Let's see. The Porsche experience is there.
He's
sorry?
sweating it,
The
man.
Porsche experience is there.
Okay, so that would have been one. Any other reason?
Yes, sir. The airport is there.
Airport in Hapeville.
Yes, sir. Delta Airlines is
Okay.
headquartered there. Let's see.
He's sweating it, folks.
Restaurants there.
Okay. If that's your recollection, that's fine. I'm not asking you to try to remember everything.
Okay, Phil. So again, I never had an associate drop me off a document at 2 a.m. and then stay for several hours. The Porsche experience, unless that's a euphemism for what he calls Fani, that doesn't work either, not overnight. And then the airport, this investigator, Charles Middlestat, specifically said modality was used to eliminate the possibility that hits could be associated with routine travel on I-75 or I-85 or nearby the airport. He did his best to eliminate any commercial site that was in the cell phone towers. Having said that, it's not an exact science. It's not an exact science, but you heard him there saying, scoffing at the notion he was ever there more than 10 times.
Well, the truth will out. It will always come out. I think the one thing that you in that testimony that he left out was that he went down there to that condo to get her to help him with his briefs. I think that's probably what he should have said, and that's probably more close to what's being accurate. Listen, this was a booty call. That's what these were. We can call a spade a spade, and he can say if he wants to that the phone records are wrong, but they're not.
It's really bad when you have your peers, the other attorneys in your area, calling it what it is, a booty call. They know. Everybody knows.
Phone records don't just change themselves. They've got him. They've got him dead to rights. They've caught him. They've caught her, quite frankly, I think, in my opinion, in some lies. And it's not just one. It's over and over and over and over. And so now this case is no longer about the guilt or the innocence of the accused. It's about the prosecutor. It's about the prosecution team now. All these people that work for her, they now have to go into court and they've got to decide for themselves, do we still carry this water for our boss? Do we buy into this claim that the phone records may be fake?
That is another excellent point. At some point, these individuals that work with the DA and the DA's office and Nathan Wade, they're going to be like, I don't know if I want to keep pushing this. This is a sinking ship. These people may end up charged with a crime and going to prison, losing their license. I don't want to buy into that.
Because they have an ethical obligation as lawyers to be truthful and candid with the court. And they can't go into court and advocate something that's knowingly false. Because then they are doing the same thing that it looks like, in my opinion, Wade and Willis are doing. And they can get disbarred and they could go to jail. They could be found in contempt of court. All sorts of bad things can happen to them. Right about now, the least of Fani Willis's concerns is the guilt or innocence of the accused in this case, whether she gets any more convictions. She's going to be lucky to get out of this mess that she's in with her law license intact. Exactly. I mean, we are into territory, Megan, where she could be tossed from office. She could be indicted. She could be referred for bar investigations. The attorney general watches the news here in Georgia. There are procedures and mechanisms in place to take action when people commit crimes in a courtroom, and it is a crime to lie to the judge. This is exactly what she's accusing a lot of these defendants of doing. And here it's on full display. Right here for the whole world to see. Her barging in there.
You got to hear this, Phil. This is just breaking on her response via CBS News. The Fulton County DA's office is working Friday to craft a rapid legal response that explains why cell phone data unearthed by Donald Trump's lawyers does not undermine the timeline DA Fani Willis gave regarding when her relationship with Nathan Wade began. A source close to Willis said lawyers in her office are trying to challenge the interpretation of the data filed by Trump's lawyers. If the data analysis is proven to be accurate, it might serve as a powerful piece of evidence that Wade and Willis misled the court about when their relationship began, among other things. The Trump team's analysis was conducted by a private investigator who used a geofencing analytics tool called CellHawk. We knew this, which the investigator called the gold standard in cell phone records analysis. On Friday, lawyers for the DA's office were trying to find their own expert witnesses who would be able to counter what the Trump lawyers have asserted, according to the source. Their hope is to be able to file a response as early as Friday or this weekend. Quote, the interpretation of the data is not what you think it is, end quote, the source told CBS News. Lawyers for the DA's office are not expected to claim that Wade did not visit the condo on multiple occasions. Indeed, both Wade and Willis have testified that Willis was there as many as 10 times, but they will maintain that the relationship had not developed into a romance during that period. By the way, nice sleight of hand by CBS News. They both testified that he was there as many as 10 times. They don't point out, we just heard him testify, definitely not more than 10. Okay, anyway, going on. The source also says
That's always the way the liberal media is. They're always going to spin it the way it's not.
that it was not uncommon. All right, ready for this, Bill? For Willis to hold work meetings at the condo. Wade was not working in the DA's office until November of 21.
Oh my God.
But the source says he was part of her, quote, kitchen cabinet. Before that, in one meeting, according to the source, Wade was involved in discussions about the Atlanta spa shooting case in which 8 people were allegedly shot to death by a disturbed gunman. So this is the kitchen cabinet, not the kitchen sink, but the kitchen cabinet defense. I mean, she's a tough boss if she's calling you over there for 6 hours overnight when you're supposed to be getting your sleep pill.
You know, I mean, it was at the kitchen. I mean, honestly, this is so incredible. I just can't believe that this is their excuse. This is something that just absolutely defies all logic and credibility. It's worse than the cash explanation. Megan, this is worse than the cash. She's saying that he was over there till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning on a kitchen cabinet meeting. I mean, I don't know what rooms they visited each other in. Maybe some of them were the kitchen. Maybe it was the back patio. Who knows? But this cell data it's there. I know this investigator. He's very good. He's as good as the cops are. He's better than a lot of cops. He's not going to be impeachable in the sense that, you know, his work product is not going to be something that they're going to be able to easily dispel. And here's the other thing. I was thinking about this when you were reading that response. Do you think that this was the only evidence that the Trump team and the Roman defense team are holding back? Or
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure they've got more. So what's going to happen? We're going to see them come out with some cockamamie type of response. And then round 2 comes. And then, you know, it's the kind of thing where you give them enough rope and let them hang themselves. That's exactly what these defense lawyers are doing, and they are doing it exquisitely.
Well, can I tell you something? If I were a lawyer in Fani Willis's position right now, and I really had nothing to hide, I really hadn't been having the affair prior to when I testified I'd say, Judge, let's go on camera and I'll show you the texts. We did text a lot because he was helping me on that shooting, or he's part of my kitchen cabinet. Here are my texts. Here are his texts. If it was a completely platonic affair, the odds are those texts are going to be completely anodyne and boring. But the odds are very different if it was a love affair. And there's probably going to be some hot and steamy things in there, or expressions of love. Let's see them. Show the texts. If you're so innocent, let's see them.
Yeah. And the other thing that is worth pointing out for people who may not be familiar with the Atlanta area, you know, East Cobb County is very close to where I'm sitting now, but it's no easy task to get all the way down to Hapeville.
Yeah, what he's talking about there is I'm very familiar with the Atlanta metro area right there. If you're in East Cobb, which is where one of the parties is supposed to be, and they drive all the way to Hapeville. They're trying to say, oh, you can get messed up on the cell tower. You can have a false ping. There's no way. It takes like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on where you're at in East Cobb, depending on where you're going in Hapeville. It takes a long time to get all the way down there, and that's assuming that there's no traffic. You're not going to have them cell towers mess up all the way down there. There's just no way.
So, I guess at midnight, 1 a.m, 4 or 5 a.m, there's not that much traffic. So he's got that going for it. But this is not normal business working hours. This is the time when you're I can't really think of any other reason that they would be visiting one another at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, unless it was having an affair.
If it were innocent, then why would you lie about the number? If it were innocent, you'd say, oh yeah, definitely more than 10. It was dozens of times. We were working on a bunch of matters. We were friends. I was her mentor. You wouldn't downplay. You wouldn't start talking about the Porsche experience. This is like the whole thing smacks of dishonesty. But I have a couple questions I want to ask you about. And I want to get back to the cell phones because there's more there. How did they get a subpoena for the cell phone records of the prosecutor? That is extraordinary.
Yeah. So
typical.
I've seen in the filings, there's at least part of the subpoena, and it actually Ashley Merchant appears to be the one who sent the subpoena. So somehow they would have been able to get Nathan's cell phone number. I've got it. I know what his cell phone number is. I've had it for a long time. But somebody also had to get her cell phone number. And this tells me that they've got sources. They've got people that are close to her that are perhaps helping provide them information. And once you get that, you just have to send the subpoena. You're a criminal defendant. You have the right to what's called compulsory process. That means you can compel the attendance of witnesses and the production of documents and other evidence. Now, we don't see this often. We don't see this often happening.
It is something that's very normal, folks. You can definitely subpoena records, especially when you can show a judge that it has a specific something to apply it to. So this is exactly why you will be able to get these kind of records. And this type of thing is going to be more common in the future because we all carry cell phones everywhere we go. The cell phone tracks us. It rings off these towers. It can either exonerate us or convict us civilly and or criminally. And that's what's going to happen in this particular case.
From the defense, but it can happen. Prosecutors do it all the time. Fani Willis, she used the grand jury
going the other way. I've never seen a defendant
used the grand jury. She was
cell phone records of the prosecutor.
She was wielding those grand jury subpoenas like just a wild woman. She was sending grand jury subpoenas for lawyers, case files, and all kinds of things that I think should have been attorney-client privilege. And I still don't know why none of that was really objected to, because she was invading the attorney-client privilege in the investigation itself. But in any event, back to your original question before I get too far off, the lawyers are making full use of the compulsory process, the right to compel through the subpoena power of the court to compel the production of evidence. And all they needed is the phone number, and of course, then they have the address, and then it's easy to start putting things on a map, plotting it out.
I just want to make sure everybody understands what they're doing is real simple. They got the cell phone records from Fani Willis. They had her number. They had the number for Nathan Wade. They have this program that they use. This program essentially figures out where all the towers are, where all the pings are, and then it can pretty well put together a map, if you will, of exactly what transpired, exactly what happened. And it proves that they lied. That's what's amazing.
When you have this, he's visiting till 5 a.m. and then or close to it or whatever, and then getting or sending a text message as soon as he gets back home up in East Cobb County. What that does is it smells like somebody saying, "Hey, honey, I made it home safe. I love you. Have a good day. I'll talk to you in a few hours after I get some sleep."
That's right.
That's the kind of thing that comes to my mind.
Absolutely. That's what comes to mind too. Now, here's the thing I want to play for the audience. Mark Garagos, very famous criminal defense attorney. He comes on our show a lot. And we were talking to him recently about the Brian Kohlberger case. He's the suspect, of course, in the quadruple murder out of Idaho. And in that case, as you may know, they use cell phone tower data to figure out whether his car was near the murder site, and they believe it was, and this was one of the bases for his arrest. Well, Garagos, who's on the defense side, again, has real questions about cell phone tower data, and he explained them on our show, and I had the team pull that SOT so you and I could discuss it. Take a listen.
I can't tell you the number of.
Just briefly, in case y'all don't recognize who this guy is, this is Mark Garagos. Remember, he I believe he represented Michael Jackson. He also at one time he represented Michael Jackson. He also represented, Scott Peterson back 22 years ago. That case has started to come up because a lot of people are taking a second look at that case. He did lose that case, but he's had a lot of wealthy and famous clients over the years, and he generally knows what he's talking about.
Murder cases that have turned out that the cell phone evidence ended up exonerating my client as opposed to showing that he was guilty. As I'm sitting right here, I could be using my phone and it could be pinging onto two towers 12 miles away from each other just by virtue of the amount of traffic on one of the towers. So I've never been a fan of the cell phone triangulation. It's a good tool to try to get you there, but I've used it to show that somebody was 40 miles away at the time of the crime and exonerated them. So that's not gonna get them there.
And even in Kohlberger, Brian Kohlberger's cell phone apparently pinged on a tower near the victim's home. I can't remember if it was the day after or the day before, but there was one false ping of his phone. So it's not foolproof. And so, are we too far ahead of our skis here?
No. So, but here's the thing: that house or that condo in Hateville, Georgia, it's not like 12 miles. It's a far distance. It's far away. Okay, it's not the kind of situation where they can claim that he was at home in East Cobb County and it just happened to be pinging off of a cell tower down by the airport. That's not going to fly. Not in this case. And I still say that there's more that they've got in reserve. There's more ammunition that they've got. So they're waiting on the defense. I want to ask you about that.
Let's talk about that because, and by the way, even if the cell phone tower data is somehow faulty, the number of calls is the number of calls. The number of texts is the number of texts. As I say, they're calling each other, 180 times a month? And I'm calling my husband 46. That's weird. And Doug and I talk a lot. I mean, granted, we live together, but I'm just saying that does not in any way sound like a platonic relationship to anybody. And visiting her for 35 times, all this stuff. Okay. Now let's talk about Terrence Bradley. He has filed a brief since you and I last spoke. He was Nathan Wade's friend and divorce lawyer for a small period of time. He's claiming blanket attorney-client privilege to get out of any discussions he had with Nathan Wade from 2015 to 2021 when he stopped representing him. He's basically saying 6 years worth of conversations are privileged because it was all during the divorce proceedings.
Crazy.
Okay.
Crazy.
It's a 6-year divorce. He didn't even file until the day after Fani hired him, November 2021. And he's just filed a brief with the court saying you shouldn't even do an in-camera review of these privileged discussions, which is supposed to happen this Monday. You shouldn't even be allowed to talk to Terrence Bradley about the where, when, why, and what, because it's privileged. And so it's not even appropriate for you to hear it as the judge behind closed doors. And the defense team, you tell me, Phil, but they seem very, very sure that Terrence Bradley has something very, very helpful to say if he's allowed to say it.
They are sure, but I give them an A for effort in asking the judge not to even look at those things in camera. The only way for the judge to evaluate it and to make the ruling is to look at it. So that is absolutely not going to fly. The judge is going to look at those text messages and listen. That type of a broad claim of attorney-client privilege, that doesn't work for me either, because when you're business partners, you're friends, you work in the same office building, you have conversations and you know things about each other that are from a different source. They're not based on an attorney-client type communication. So that's a little bit overbroad in my view, and I don't think it's going to fly.
Do you think that we have seen all the defense has, like their best stuff in those text messages we know that Terrence Bradley exchanged with Ashley Merchant? You and I played them a couple days ago where there was at least one in which he he signed off on the brief saying looks good. The brief saying that the affair had begun long before 2022. All those things. Every claim of the defense is basically, he said, yeah, it looks good. And then she texted him saying, is there anybody who would go on the record and give me an affidavit about the affair? And he said something to the effect of, no one would burn that bridge. He didn't say there was no affair. But have we sort of seen it all, do you think? Or might there be more?
You know, if I'm wrong about this, I'll come back on your show and I'll eat my hat for the world to see here on YouTube. But no, we've not seen the last of this. We're going to see more. I think we might even see all of those texts eventually. It's going to come out one way or another. I'm convinced of that. And the prosecutor is correct in being very concerned and trying to keep that out, because from what I've seen, I'm convinced that they have proof that those text messages contain more ironclad proof that there was an affair that lasted or that began before 2022. And that would be just more evidence that Fani Willis has perpetrated a fraud on the court. And once that is established, this case is over. She's over. She could be out of office, but that, I think, is going to be the death knell for this case.
Well, that's the thing. It's just like, I don't know if there's anything stopping Ashley Merchant from making those texts public and just showing us. Maybe the judge can't see them or doesn't want to see them because he thinks that it's a lawyer revealing privileged information, but the lawyer did it. I don't think she's under any ethical obligation not to tell us what's in there. And I agree with you. At some point in some way, we're going to find out what's in there. And if what's in there is Terrence Bradley saying, it began way back whenever, he doesn't want me to tell you, who knows what's in there? She might be able to keep it out of evidence. She might even be able to save herself with this judge in this proceeding, but we'll find out eventually, and she'll be embarrassed and somebody will just renew the motion in front of this judge. Like,
you know, she makes a very good point. Remember, Ashley Merchant has the text messages from the what was that guy's name again? Bradley, the ex-partner of Nathan Wade. The Terrence Bradley's his name. She has a text message. Apparently, she contacted him, and he was talking with her on the phone and via text message. And he all but told her, "Yeah, I know that they were engaged in an intimate, personal adult relationship prior to November 1st, 2021." And she was confronting him with the text message on her phone. And like Megan was just saying, hey, we don't know that there's any reason that Ashley Merchant can just go ahead and release the text message herself. So at some point she will. She's not under any court order that I know of that says she can't release information that's in her phone or on her phone that was willingly given to her. I mean, does that make sense to everybody? I don't know why she would be under any kind of obligation that she has to that she has to keep that information instead of giving it out. So I just want you to consider that and be thinking about that. So this is really, really a terrible, terrible situation that they have got themselves in. And I find it hilarious. Every time they speak, they dig this hole deeper and they keep digging it more. So listen, tomorrow, make sure if you're still with me, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button, like, subscribe, share this with somebody that needs to know the truth and know exactly where all these cases against Donald Trump are eventually all going to go. And like many people before them, it looks like Fani Willis, Nathan Wade's going to end up in jail, disbarred, unable to support themselves. Tomorrow, I'm going to jump on, Lord willing, we are going to review the motion that was actually filed with the court that has this information, and we're going to review the weird motion, let's just call it that Nathan Wade's attorneys filed in this case. It's just really silly and really nonsensical, and I promise I'll take more time to review and holler out to everybody. I want to say a quick hello to the Lilo Show. What's up? Lynn Malley, Smooth 49, always in the house, you guys. Mr. No Reply, American Nana. You guys are the best. I wanted to get to this breaking news today before I did much of anything else. So as I always say, it humbles me when you join me. It is always nice to stop by and have a conversation with you guys. I really love you all. I really do. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I always say, keep that mind free. Never give up, my friends. And until next time, I am J.R.